Okay, welcome to the Sunday Shop Update. This is the last one before Christmas, so it's one day before Christmas Eve. I'm going to take a little break making videos for a week or so, spend some time with my family. I thought it would be a good idea. I saw a video, Japanese samurai carpenter, and it was interesting. It was on expansion, and he's got quite a lot of abuse on the messages after putting across his point of view. So I thought I would do something on expansion as well, because I get asked a lot of questions on virtually everything that I upload that has any kind of grain going in two directions joint. Everybody steams in with expansion questions. If I'm using any sort of fixings, as you might know, I like to use the D-nut, which is like a threaded nut, goes into the bottom of the piece of wood, and then you can use a nice Allen key. And the reason I do that mainly is because of flat pack or almost flat pack shipping. So that's the reason I use those joints a lot. And as you also know, I discovered the Domino a few years ago, and it's kind of revolutionised the way I work. It's just so much more fun, more accurate. So, you know, I've never looked back, and mortise and tenons is not something that I'm going to be doing if I can ever avoid it. And again, you get a lot of cross-grain joints when you're using the Domino, whether it be the mechanical joint or mechanical fixing or the glue fixing. So what I'm going to do is, and this is not intended to be any kind of video to spark off loads of discussions and whatnot on whether I'm right or wrong. This is just my opinion on it, and what I'm going to do different is I'm actually going to show you some pieces of furniture, some that I've made, some that I've bought for my own, for my house and my family, and I'm going to show you some examples of where there are no expanding joints and nothing has ever happened. Personally, I have never had a problem with using the kind of joints that I use and lack of expansion on some of them. I'll also show you the traditional way of building the door, which is on my kitchen door, not something I built, and the way I built my door in my resin room using laminated wood and a Domino. And as the samurai carpenter said, he's right. It's sort of a lot of the problem is to do how dry you get the wood. I'll show you the two humidity moisture content meters that I use. So I have a couple of moisture meters. I have a probe style one. I'll try and find a link. I've had this for ages. Which you just put the pins in. Doesn't really mark the wood too much, but what I've found is it's not very accurate. You could put it on the same piece 4 or 5 times and get different readings. And then I come across this one, which is fantastic. You can change the wood types. I'll put a link in for this as well. In fact, I think Felder sell one similar to this. This was on eBay DE, so Germany, I think I bought this. This is fantastic. This is sort of penetrating, if you like. It doesn't need to dig in the wood. It just lays on. Probably what I'd expect in this shop. I've probably not got it set on the right wood. It's like a 7. I reckon it's beech. Let's try and 7. That's about what I'd expect in a shop like this. The humidity is 75, so it's quite high at the moment, and it is 8.6, so it's really cold. 13, that's okay. So that's a really good moisture meter, and it is a bit of an investment, but depending on what you're doing, I got that because of the resin, to be honest, because I wanted to get it really accurate before I was putting resin in. And I think if the wood is stable, then you will not find any problems, any major problems, any sort of cupping or splitting of tables, if the wood's at the right temperature and it's in an average environment. So in England, let me look here. This is 75 humidity in this room. I would expect the average house to be around about 50. It does go up and down with central heating and summer, but it's such a small amount of movement that it's never, in my case, popped, cupped or exploded any furniture, that's for sure. Or else I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be using it. If that was the case, I'd be using different joints. So crucial thing is getting the wood at the right temperature, the right moisture, humidity. And that involves, for me, I prefer air dried. I find it easier to machine. I find air dried just generally a nicer wood. Kiln dried, if it's done really well, is good, and is obviously in the winter in England, as I'm sure in some of the places in the States, the colder places, in the winter it's really hard to work with the air dried if your wood is stored anywhere that isn't in a kind of semi-heated environment like a house would be. So I do tend, if I'm doing a big table, I've got quite a big bed, and what I'll do is there's a space under there, I'll carry the planks up, rough planed and dressed, not finished, and I'll leave them under there, maybe 3 or 4 planks for 4 weeks, something like that. And my bedroom's not hot, I don't like it too stuffy, so it's just average, but the humidity is a bit more controlled is what I'm looking for. So that's something that I'll do on like a big wide table. With the resins, the real big river table resins, that's something that's a bit of an unknown. If you're using really moist wood, you can get it breaking away. So let me just show you a couple of examples of pieces that I've made and pieces I've collected. Now, stuff I do collect, or did collect, was 17th century English oak furniture, and you will see that their joints have no movement at all for expansion. And obviously they're like concrete now, they're 400 or 500 years old pieces, but they weren't when they were built. And expansion wasn't taken into consideration, not in a big way. Obviously wood does move, we all agree on that, but how much it moves in a house or in a stable environment is an opinion, I guess. And in my opinion is it doesn't move enough to warrant really complicated ugly joints or really complicated slot fixings for everything if it's not a big piece of furniture. Anyway, let's have a quick look and see what you all think. This is a table I picked up, I think it's Indonesian, I'm not sure, or Indian. As you can see here, lovely joint, it's all made by hand. Brilliant, and no room at all for expansion on here. So the 2 grains are meeting. There's mortises and tenons all the way along here. I saw one of these being made, and this offset mitre. There's no room for expansion, and this table has not buckled and has not bowed. And this table spent a long time in an outbuilding, storage, freezing cold. This is a really warm room, right next to a radiator and a boiler. Radiator here, and I've had no problems with this at all, no movement at all. That's one example. Now on to my very favourite piece of furniture, 16th century 6-leg refectory table. And this construction, if I can get the light, there are here, can you see, there's basically dowels, like wooden pegs all the way along. No, this is like your classic kind of what people are calling breadboard. There is no room for expansion. It's doweled into here, these planks, and there. Now over the years, you can see that gap possibly wasn't there 400 years ago, who knows. This wood has split a little bit in different places, and so has this. But this has always remained on this table, and it just has all just those few millimetres. These have probably shrunk rather than moved in and out. The ends pretty much shrunk in a bit here, but this was not built, and if we look underneath, it's very, very difficult to see, I'm afraid, but if you look underneath, it's just very simple construction, what we call refectory table. It's just 3 planks, or in this case it's 4 planks, your breadboard end. There's a fix in here. If I could turn it over, I can't lift it on my own. Again, these are just wooden pegs driven into a big oak brace, goes across here, and then it just sits unfixed to the top on that. And no problems at all for 400 years. So let's now go to something a bit more modern. This is being used to wrap all the presents. Let's go to something a little bit more modern, something I built. And I built it in the summer, and it has a mechanical joint. Very controversial because it has the legs on the end. So this is a table you would have seen. I've got a link in the description which I made in the summer, back in the summer. It has absolutely no fixings on it at all other than these 4 domino breakdown joints, and I'm going to go and get an Allen key and break them down. The racking on this is very acceptable for this design, for what it's for. It's not an everyday kitchen table, and what's good in this case is it's had no finish on it, so this is just raw wood. no stain, no any kind of sealant or oils. So if we're going to see expansion and contraction problems, these domino joints, which are very accurate and mechanical, let's see. I've already taken this to a show earlier in the year, HR, and I broke it down, stuck it in the back of the car and put it back together. It was left out for a week in a marquee, really strenuous conditions for wood, and it's had no problems at all, none at all. So let's have a look at that. I'm just going to take it to bits and we can see how that holds up. Okay, so just jack the table up. This little trestle, it's just off the floor, the leg, just about off the floor. So I'm just going to take it out and we can see, because there was a lot of questions about this, the movement or whatever on this table breaking itself apart. Okay, so that's just, it's only just off the floor. Let's come in and have a look. This is the joints now after, I'll have to check the date on this actually, I can't remember, but I think it's about 6-7 months. So it was definitely made in the summer, and it's now winter, and this thing's been in a marquee, like I said, it's been all over the place. Various shows and stuff, but let's just get that out. Trestle's not high enough. There you go. So showing you that connection. So putting it back together after all this time with expansion contraction. These are still tight, they're not loose, taking up any stress. There's no cracks on the wood at all here. It's not buckled, it's absolutely flat still. As you can imagine, these dominoes were just cut with a pencil line, so 4 domino connections along a straight edge without using any kind of jig. This is always going to be a tight fit because you've got the pencil line for an error. As long as you hold it there, you can see that's just pushing in nicely. Push underneath, like that. And then just go ahead and snug this up. And there it is. Really good joint, top and bottom. And as I said, a good example, this one, because there's no finishing on here, so it's not been sealed. So it's actually displayed some of my chopping boards, so that's some food safe oil that's rubbed off. But so you can see there, no problem with either end. It's not exploded and destroyed itself, and it's using a very unconventional joint. This was an exercise I was doing to test this design. I love it. I've had so much good feedback about it as well. So this is an example, again, the Samurai Carpenter mentioned this, and he is right, where we've got an outside surface and an inside surface. A door is a great example, and it's obviously moving, unlike a window, which is, you know, screwed and fixed on all corners. This room has heating, lovely, I'm really pleased with that. Outside it's bloody freezing and damp. Now what I tend to find, I wanted this door to be pretty tight, and I've gone with about a 5mm gap down here, all round. And I was worried, what I've seen on oak doors, if we go outside, what I've seen on oak doors is that the top tends to bend back, and that's to do with the heat. I've gone with a very tight fit with this weather strip, and I've tend to found that the back of the door tends to start leaning in. So what I did on this door, and there is a build on this, if you're just checking this video out, you can see, it's hard to see on this camera, but this is laminated, so this is 2 pieces of oak. I used a domino, and then I pegged right through. I made a mega domino. And I've found this to be really stable already, much better than a traditional door. It was something that I was interested in, whether I laminated, because it's quite thin, it's a big door, and it is quite thin. And I was just thinking, laminating 2 pieces of oak is going to give me more of a structure, because the glue joint really stops it from twisting. So that has worked well, a non-traditional method there. And I'll show you a fully traditional method, which has not worked well. So let's go and see that. So this is a door we use most of the time to come into our kitchen. And as you can see, this top one is leaning right back. Behind this door is an Aga and my boiler. And if you look here, if you look up here, you can see, hello mate. If you look up here, you can see my son's welded this for me. If I push there to get the draft in, so that keeps it flush, but it wants to lean back, and that is because this room is so hot and the cold air, and it is just kicking it back, and it's a real common problem. And this is hard to get the light for you here. This is completely traditional joinery, goes right through here, mortise and tenon pulled in, boarded door, really thick construction, almost a third thicker than my door in my workshop I made at my resin shop, and that's not done the trick. So okay, that's it for this week's Sunday shop update. Just to be clear, I am not saying that wood does not expand and contract, it does, but what I've found in the UK anyway, and my furniture designs, what I've been doing has never been an issue, and I hope I've showed you some of those connections today. I'd like to also thank all my subscribers. What a brilliant year it's been, 48,000 subscribers, I can't quite believe it. And a special thanks to my Patreons for their support, it's so kind. Thank you so much. I'm going to see you all in the new year. As I said, a small break for Christmas, spend some time with my family, but I am trying to get my Instagram going. I've got some interesting stuff from Banggood, more profile and that, and you'll see some pictures of that. Got some great ideas for some of that stuff. I'll put some images on Instagram if you want to follow me there. Until then, I'll see you in the new year. Thanks very much. Bye.